The Yukon is home to as many as 10,000 black bears and 6,000 grizzly bears. These powerful animals are integral parts of nature's system and deserve a high level of respect. Unfortunately, in some situations, a lack of respect by some humans leads to a bear becoming a problem. In these situations, the bear is usually the loser, and in order to protect the public and property, may be destroyed, or in this case, relocated. Both species of bears are sought after by resident and non-resident hunters. The meat from either bear is edible, with the meat from the black bear being quite delicious if cared for and properly prepared. Hunters need to realize that the quality of meat you place on the table depends on a clean kill and rapid meat cooling. There must be no tainting of the meat by blood, dirt, hair, or stomach contents. Finally, sensible cuts must be made when butchering. In this video, Tony Grabowski takes us step by step through the complete field dressing of a black bear. This includes removing the hide, skinning the paws and the face, then turning the ears and splitting the lips. Tony also demonstrates how to remove the meat and salt the hide. The skinning begins with cuts to the bear's legs.
Okay, right from the center of the pad, the heel pad, just put the knife in like so, and just to the side of this little pad, find the point of the shoulder, or the point of the elbow right there, I should say, and then work towards it, right on the center. Okay, and once you reach that point, rather than go down the back of the leg, you have to come over this way and meet the cut that's on this side. This cut hasn't quite come to the center of the chest, which is at this point right here. So what I'll do is just work that cut over. And again, with the knife blade always up and cutting from underneath and up, never down with the blade down, because you cut the hair. So I'll come straight down like so. And I can see the cut on this side. So my goal is to try and meet that cut. Exactly where it ends, this one will meet it, and there we go. From the point here where you left off, you want to cut either through the pad this way here, the middle of the pad, and stop halfway between the toe pad and the main pad, or you can go around the pad completely to there. And what I'll do is I'll cut around on this one. So from the point right here where I made the one incision, I find the start of it, and I'll work around the pad carefully, and I'll leave about 1/4 of an inch of hide and hair attached to the pad. So you stop the cut right about there. Now what this does is allows you to skin the pad to the side, and it forms a flap, and it also allows you to gain access to your toe pads, because they have to be skinned out to about the halfway point. And the only joint that's left then is the joint that's attached to the claw. The rest must come out. And each toe must be boned out individually at a later time. Right now we're just doing the main cuts. And like I said earlier, they have to be symmetrical. And one side, the cut has to be identical to the cut on this side, and it's the same is true with the back legs. The cut down the center line has to be right on the center. Now, once I've done this cut, then I go to the back legs, and I'll do this, I'll make the cuts in the back legs, and they're slightly different than the front. Now I'll go around the pad on this one as well. And what I have to do first is find where I last left off, and it's just short of the pad. There's about 1/4 of an inch of hide with hair attached to the pad itself. I have to switch spots. Again, you have to stay about halfway between the main pad and the toe pads. Make sure that your hands are out of the way of the knife. And you have to stop when you get to a line that's about even with the main heel pad and the toe pad. And that cut is far enough right there. And again, the pad and the skin will flip over to the side, and it'll allow access to all the toe pads later on for further skinning. Now we'll go to the hind legs and we'll make the cuts there. On the hind foot of a bear, the foot tapers to the back, and what it forms essentially is the heel, and that's a point right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the pad as we did in the front and work to the very center of the heel, which ends right here. That's the back of the heel. Okay, from the point of the heel, which is situated right there, you can see that. Work down the back of the leg, right on the center of the back of the leg. Focus on where you want your cut to end up. Keep a nice straight line and work your way towards the vent. And the cut ends right in front of the vent at the halfway point on the center line of the bear. This is the center line of the bear right there. Then I can come back and I'll go around the pad on the inside of the foot. You can also cut through the center of the pad, and whichever way, it matters little. From the point of where the cut was started there or ended, just shy of the main pad, and you always it's a good idea to leave about 1/4 of an inch of hide with hair attached to the pad. So if that's eventually stitched up in a taxidermy project, that the stitches will stick better to the leather part. The pad is made up of a material that stitches don't seem to hold too well. And then you work the knife blade over and you stop at a point that's it forms a line between the toe pad and the main pad. See that line right there? Well, that's where you want to stop your cut. It's right there. You don't have to go any further. Now this opening cut is complete on this foot. We'll go to the next foot. You start at the back of the pad. You find the heel, which is right there. You can feel it. It drops right off. That's the point where you want to make your cut down the center right there, the back of the foot. And you want to end the cut on this leg and meet that cut right there that was made down the other leg. So you'll, again, with the knife blade up, never down, otherwise you cut hair. And what you do is you just carefully go down the very, very back of the leg until and focus on where you want the cut to end up, and then work the knife blade in that direction. And there you go. The knife has met that spot exactly. Okay, and what we have to do is go around the pad as we did on the other hind foot there. Find the spot where the cut started. Go around the inside of the leg, not the outside. Go around the inside of the leg. Leave about 1/4 of an inch of hide with hair attached. Keep your fingers out of the way of the knife blade, and then go halfway between the toe pads and the main pad through the middle of this hair right here. So the opening cuts are now complete on all 4 legs. The next cut is the one down the center line of the bear. And it's equally important to make sure that it is right exactly on the center. And in order to do that, you can lay the bear on its back. And I prefer to start at the front and then work towards the end. Okay, so I'm going to make the center line cut, which is made exactly on the center. And I'll start it right about 4 or 5 inches back from the tip of the lower jaw. Okay, what you never want to do is cut through the lip right here. That would have to be stitched, and the hair is quite thin there, and the stitches might show. So you never ever cut through the lip at that point. About 4 or 5 inches back from the tip of the lip towards the throat is where the first incision on the center line of the bear is started. And it has to be made on the exact center. Again, with the knife blade up. If you're not sure where the center is, you can check it. Make sure that you hit it right on the center. And you only cut through the skin. You don't necessarily have to cut through the meat, because at this point it's just an opening cut. I've gone with an incision from about 4 to 5 inches from the tip of the lower lip right to where I think the center, the absolute center of the bear is, right and left. And I've stopped right where that cut came from each of the 2 front legs. Now at this point, what I want to do is continue towards the rear end of the bear. I want to stay exactly on the center, and you have to watch and ensure that this is happening. Okay, so we've got, it looks like this line here is the center, so you kind of measure from one side to the other. Okay, that looks like the center, so, and then we'll start again, and we'll work towards the back. Again, knife blade up, never down. And if you have the knife blade down, then what happens is that the hair gets cut. And if you go through like that, you want to pick it up exactly where you stopped off and not go off to the side. You pick it up exactly where you stopped. Again, there's another reference point right there. That's the center, so you work towards that. And when you get to this area here, on male bears, you have the genitals, and you can just go around the genitals and then come back onto the center line. This bear is a female. It's a problem bear that was destroyed because it was causing problems last summer. And we try and encourage hunters not to shoot female bears. In fact, it's not legal to shoot bears that are female that have cubs with them. And when on the female bear, you can go through the center of the genitals or off to the side. On this one, I'm going to go off to the side. And what I want to do is meet that other cut and only go that far. So there. Now the cut is made through to where that one came from the back leg that way, from the back leg this way. I'm just going to recap the main cuts on this bear. There are 5, 1 for each leg and then 1 down the center line. And I've since placed white felt in the cuts to further show the correct locations of where they're supposed to be made. And I can't stress enough of how important symmetry is, because you want one side of the hide to be a mirror image of the other. So if you make the cuts exactly on the center, that mirror image will in fact happen, and you will have a very symmetrical hide. Okay, once you've harvested an animal, I think it's important to treat the animal with respect, and you should use as much of the animal as possible. In the case of bears, you should use the hide. You should make sure that when it's skinned properly so that the hide is symmetrical and that there's not any cuts or damage made to it. You should salvage the meat if you're not interested in the bear meat yourself. There are many people who do enjoy eating bear meat. It is nutritious, it is good, so rather than leave it in the field, bring it out and donate it to someone that will use it. And that way you've used your 100% of your animal, and that's good because you're showing respect for the animal that you've taken. Okay, now that we've got the opening cuts made, we'll just touch up the knife just a wee bit so we can commence the skinning process. A good sharp knife makes the skinning job a lot easier. There. Pull the felt strips out of the way and start the skinning process. You can pick any spot you want to start, and I'm a firm believer that you should spend a little bit more time in the skinning process and do a nice clean job, and then it takes less time fleshing later. This bear appears to be in fairly good shape. It's got some body fat, which you should leave on the carcass and not on the hide. This hide here is ready for salting right now. It requires no further fleshing because I've left the fat and the meat on the carcass. Now if I was in a big rash and I skinned and the hides in a manner that left a lot of fat and flesh on there, this would take a lot of time to clean. It's best to leave the fat and flesh on the carcass and not on the hide. And once you've gained a little experience in doing so, it doesn't take a whole lot more time to do it properly. What you can do is, once you've got it started, you can pull, and what that does is it exposes the relatively transparent connective tissue that joins the skin to the body. And if you make your cut on that connective tissue, you will not cut the hide. And it's apparent right there as well. It's fairly clear, and that's the tissue that you want to cut. You don't want to cut the hide. And again, the more fat and flesh and tissue that you leave on the carcass, the less fleshing you have to do on the hide later on. It's a real time saver, because fleshing a bear hide takes quite a lot of time to do it properly, and if you skin the bear close enough, then you avoid having to flesh. Okay, we're nearing the completion of skinning this one foot. And as I was saying earlier, that when you make the cut around the pad forms a bit of a flap. The hinge is on this side, and the opening cut is on the inside of the foot. And as I said before, I left a little bit of material under the pad, which can be removed later on both these pads, but the rest of the leg is skinned close enough that it can be salted without any further fleshing. And as I said earlier, what you do is you pull the hide away from the carcass, and you can see where the clear tissue is formed. That's what you cut, and that way you avoid cutting the hide itself. One thing that I've found that makes it helpful to bone out the toes is to separate the toes from the actual foot. And a good place to do that is right about here. There's a joint in the foot. If you cut through there on each toe and separate them and leave that part with the hide, you can bone out each toe a little easier. You can do them individually, each one separate. So that's what I'm going to do here, is cut through these. Again, keeping your fingers out of the way. There's nothing worse than getting a nasty knife cut when you're in the middle of doing something like this. I know that from experience. We're going to skin the bear completely. We're going to bone the toes later, and we'll also turn the ears and split the lips later. And then we'll salt the hide, and on this bear we're going to look after the main meat as well. Now you can see that each toe is separate of each other, and it has a piece of bone still attached. Each toe will be skinned separately to about halfway down the toe pad, and that last joint that will leave in the toe is the joint that's attached to the claw. That one has to remain. And it's about halfway down the toe pad. And I'll show you that later. Okay, that's about as far as I can go down this way without going back and starting on the center line and working the hide in this direction. So that's exactly what I'll do right now. It's as far as I can go right down in here. This is holding me up right there on this area right here. So what I'll do is start right here. You pull the hair out of the way, and so that it's not cut. And once you've got it started, then it'll go fairly good. And as far as bear meat is concerned, you can, with a bear carcass, you can butcher it like you would any other animal, and you can have steaks and chops and roasts and make hamburger, and you can use the fat for pastry lard. Render it down and use it for pastry lard. You can make sausages, jerky. You can brine the meat and make ham. I suppose that if you had a fat enough bear, you could even make bacon. Okay, the only thing with bear meat, it is very nutritious. It's very tasty and so on, but it must be cooked properly to avoid a parasite called trichinosis. And freezing bear meat for long periods of time will also kill the parasite, so if it's cooked properly, bear meat is excellent. It's nutritious and tasty. Now, there seems to be a bit of a flap of skin that holds the hind leg to the stomach area. You can see that there's a bit of a flap of skin there, so it'll become more apparent once I skin that away and leave it on the carcass. There is a flap right there. Okay, we're working on the hind leg area now, and started skinning away from the cut that goes down the back leg to the vent, which is right under the tail right there. And there's a fair bit of fat on the hind leg here. It looks like about ½ of an inch of fat. I'll do the pad. That's the one area that you can just flesh a little bit later on. And then you can use your thumb and your index finger and grab onto the hair that's between the main pad and the toe pads. Lift up and then make your cut. And lift up, make your cut. Once you figure out where the joints are, watch where your knife is so you don't cut yourself accidentally. A nasty cut in a wilderness setting can be a bad thing. So you have to be really careful not to cut yourself. I've gone as far as I can safely go along the center line of the back. It's pretty much at the point now where I have to skin the other side. So I'll just pull this out to see what the hide looks like so far. And there's no further fleshing required on here. These little bits that are left on there's nothing to them, and the salt will penetrate that. Once we've skinned the other side, it should look exactly the same as this, because we made our cuts exactly in the center line down the center of the main body, and we made each of the cuts on the legs exactly the same from one side to the other. So the only thing to do with this side now would be to remove this bit of gristle from the pads and bone out the toes, front and back foot, and the rest is ready for salting. But we'll have to do the other side of the hide first before we do any fleshing in this area and any salting. So I think what we can do is just work on the other side now. If you're planning on saving the meat of the bear and you're in the bush and you've got needles and leaves and sticks and whatnot on the forest floor, you can use the hide as a tablecloth. So you lay the hide down and you carefully roll the meat over onto the hide so it stays nice and clean, like so. And what we've done is we've skinned the one side that's down. We've laid the carcass on the hide to keep the meat clean, and then we've worked on the animal's right side. We've skinned out the leg and removed the flap that the pad forms, and cut the toes off, leaving about an inch and a half of bone in the toes. We've skinned from the bottom of the carcass in the belly area. We've skinned that back. We've done the hind leg and skinned the pad away. It forms a bit of a flap with a hinge on this side. We've boned the toes, cut the bones on the toes, and left the toe bones attached to the toe pads. We've skinned back the hind leg all the way down, and we've met the center line of the carcass and the cuts from the other side. Okay, this little strip here is the center line, and we've skinned from the one side and from the other side. We've done the left first and the right side next. The hide on this side looks the same as it did on the other side. We laid it flat. The next stage is to remove the tail, and then we'll remove the hide from the head by carefully caping the face. And we'll do the tail first. And the same idea, carefully skinning back on the tail. And we cut through the vent right here, straight through, like so. That's the area under the tail, which is the vent. And we have to make one small incision on the underside of the tail. This is the top side here. One small incision on the underside of the tail, exactly in the center. So you have to measure and ensure that you're right on the center. And you go back to the tailbone, right at the end of the tailbone, and make one incision right on the center of the tail, right through the vent, like so. The tail on a bear is quite short. The tailbone is now exposed, and there's only one little area left that's tissue that's holding it to the hide, so we'll sever through that, and the tail will be completely free from the hide. There's just a wee bit of fat there. We'll just flesh that away, and this whole area here is ready for salt. Just flesh back a little bit on the vent. Okay, at this point, what I have to do is move the hide back in front of the head, because I'm going to be skinning the head area. But because we're saving the meat, I don't want the meat to get dirty I don't want bits of material on the meat. So what I'll do is I'll tuck the hide under, tight to the carcass. You can do this when you're alone. Then you lay your tarp down like so. Nice clean surface area. And then you can carefully roll the carcass on top of the clean area. Pull the hide out from underneath, and there you have it. You have your carcass is protected so it doesn't get dirty, and your objective of getting the hide in front of the head to assist in the skinning of the head area, you've achieved that goal as well. And it's a good idea, in order to keep sticks and leaves off the hide, you can fold it in like so as well and keep it clean. Now the skinning of the head area, you just work back from the neck. And the very first thing you come to when you're skinning the head area is there are two ears. And you can see from when you get to the ears, you'll know it. And then when you do one side, you get to a certain point, then you have to go and do the other side to catch up. I'm slowly working my way towards the ear butt. I should get there here fairly soon. So this is the ear butt. You can start to see it take shape right here. And the visible part of the ear that you're able to see, the ear continues on down the side of the head, and it enters the skull quite far down. In fact, the base of the ear butt is right over here, and that's where it enters the skull, is quite low. Now we're at the stage where we have to decide where to cut through the ear butt. This is the back side of the ear. You can see the shape of the ear butt. It tapers down to a funnel shape, and it enters the skull right at that point, right there. It goes straight into the head, into the inner ear canal. This point right here is the notch on the outside of the ear where the two edges of the ear come together and they form a notch right there. You don't want to cut through that point. What you want to do is cut halfway between that point and where the ear goes into the skull. On the outside of the ear, this margin and this margin come together and they form a notch right down there. This ear margin and this ear margin come together and they form a V. The bottom of the V is right there, and on the hide, it's right there. You don't want to cut the ear cartilage off at that point. About halfway between that point and where the ear cartilage goes into the skull is about where you want to cut the cartilage off. And you can see you should skin the ear back to about this far in order to see that V notch on the ear, and you can see where the ear butt goes in. The ear butt itself tapers into a funnel shape like so, and then it enters the skull right there. So where you want to make your cut is halfway between there and there. So halfway would be right there. So then you just cut straight in like so, and you've got the ear cartilage cut off at the exact right spot. The ear butt is the first place where you have to actually sever off the ear butt. That's the first thing. And then the next spot is the eyes, where you have to cut through, and then the nose, and then around the lips. So we've come as far as we can past the ears, and then the next thing you have to worry about is the eyes. And the eyes on a bear are very small, and it's very easy to make a cut in the hide around the eyes. And because the hair is very short there, it's not a thing that you want to do. You don't want to make cuts in the hide at any time, but it's especially true where the hair is short and any stitches will show. And the eye area is one that confuses people, I would think, more often than any other part. So the trick is to reach underneath, and you can see where the eye is. There's the eye, upper and lower lid. It's very small on a bear, perhaps 16 millimeters is all. The eye size, 16 to 18 millimeters. So what you do is you actually put your finger in the eye, like so. Then you turn the hide back over, and you can feel your finger and see it on the other side, the flesh side. So I'll take my knife and I'll cut it on the other side of my finger, straight in, like so. And then I'll carefully skin it away, and eventually you can see your finger in there. There's the tip of the finger, and I know that I'm not cutting the eyelid that way. Once I get it to this stage, and then I can see what I'm doing, and I'll make sure that I don't cut through the eyelid. Okay, now we've skinned forward, we've passed the ears, we've passed the eyes on both sides. The next stage that we come through, the next thing is the rear corner of the mouth right here. And in order to prevent cutting it, you put, again, your finger right in the corner of the mouth and then gradually skin towards that. You don't want to cut through the lips either, so you have to go a little slower in this spot. There's the corner of the mouth right here, the upper jaw, the lip skin, and the lower jaw, the lip skin. They meet right in the corner right there. So what I'll do is I'll put my finger right in the corner, like that. Then I'll pull the hide over, and I can see where my finger is underneath. My finger is situated right underneath there. So I want to cut back a little bit back from there, maybe about 1/2 of an inch. So I'll cut straight through. You can see where my finger is. There's the corner of the lip. And then from there you can skin the lips on both sides forward towards the nose. The nose consists of a black area that's visible, and there's an area of cartilage in behind the nose. This is all cartilage right here. The skull itself doesn't start until about this point right there. So anyway, you skin forward on the nose about this far, and then you just cut straight through the cartilage, like so. And that completely removes the hide from the carcass. We now have the hide completely separated from the carcass. And what we'll do at this stage is we'll put this aside so that we can now look after the meat. Once the meat's looked after, we'll come back to the hide, we'll turn the ears, split the lips, bone out the toes, and then we'll apply a generous layer of salt to the hide. And we'll be done. We have a skinned out carcass. It's nice and clean. There's no dirt or sticks or needles on it. And what we're going to do is remove all of the edible meat from it. We'll start with the front shoulder right here, and got the various bones in there, so we'll cut the front shoulder off and set it aside. And we can do the hind leg the same way. Okay, there's a bullet socket joint in the pelvis area, and that's a good spot to make your when you're severing the hind leg, that's a good place to do it. So then you take the whole hind leg off in one piece. And you can set it aside as well. Okay, we have a number of pieces of meat here that have been laid out, and most big game animals, you would have the same kinds of meat. You would have a front shoulder, you'd have a hind quarter. There's some rib meat here that's been boned off of the ribs. You have the 2 pieces of neck meat. You have a back strap. There's 2 of those, one on either side of the back. There's another hind, another front shoulder, and then some more rib meat. Whether it's a moose or a caribou or a bear, the sheep, the cuts are virtually the same. What you can do if you're having to pack the meat out on your back is you can further reduce your weight by removing the leg bones, but the rest of the meat is all boneless cuts. It's nice and clean, there's no dirt, there's no hair, there's no leaves on it, and it's pretty much ready for the next stage, which would be to cut and wrap it and freeze it for future use. Okay, what I'm planning on doing here is removing the toe bones, and I plan on fleshing the area underneath the pad. That's the pad, remember how it forms a flap? And I'd like to remove the little bit of material on this little pad here as well. So I'll start with a little pad and work forward. And what you do is just carefully skin away that area and then completely remove it. There, that's that little bit of tissue material that was in that small pad. And you can see that's that little bit of material that was in there. It's now been removed. It sat right in there like that. And the salt will go in there and preserve all of that quite nicely. And you can start with the toes. The nice thing about having these bones separate is that there's less opportunity for making cuts in the skin in between the toes right here. If you leave the foot attached and you try and skin these toe bones out, what always happens is that you always make knife cuts in between the toes. This avoids that because you can see what you're doing one toe at a time. Again, you can grab the hair that's right behind the pad and use it as something to hold on to. A knife with a nice pointy blade like this is helpful too, to help you get into the spot where you want. We want to skin it forward to the point that we're about halfway where the pad is on the toe. So we have to turn the toe inside out until it's about halfway through the pad. And then the joint will become obvious to you, and then that's where you remove the bone, right at that last joint inside the toe. And that's it right there. And as you can see, I'm able to cut around the entire bone of the toe and not make any cuts in the toe. That's the shortest bone on the front foot of the bear, and it's been removed from there. Okay, we've boned out all the toes. I'm on the last one on this foot, and all the 5 toe bones have now been removed. And what we would do now is put salt in there and then pack that area. But that's how it looks on the other side. And this side here, it's all cleaned. The pad's clean. This little pad is clean. So this hide is ready for salting right now. The odd little tiny bit of tissue on there you can probably leave. It's clean enough. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn an ear and split the lips. I'm going to turn this ear here. We've got it started already, so it shouldn't take too much time to finish it up. This is always a very delicate and worrisome part for people to know just how to go about doing it. And what we're going to be doing is turning the ear inside out. And as I go, if I see an opportunity to do a little fleshing, I'll do that. Getting a little bit of the flesh off there. Turned it around the other way so I can grasp the back of the ear skin with these two fingers and then push the cartilage away with these two fingers and then put the knife in between. What I'm trying to do is create that area that we had talked about before, that little white area of connective tissue, and that's where you make your knife cuts. You have to skin the ear right through to the edge. If you don't skin that area and get salt in there, then the hair could slip off of the ear. You'll have a bald patch after it's tanned. You know that you're getting close to the edge of the ear cartilage when it slightly changes color and it almost looks like there's little holes in the cartilage itself, whereas on the main cartilage you don't see that, but you can see the ear skin through the cartilage. It just changes color a bit and there's little tiny holes that are visible, and that tells me that that's the very edge of the ear, and you can't go any further than that. Any further than that and you'll be making a cut in the ear. And that's true of the entire ear margin, all around the edge of it. You also know that you're getting close to finishing up the ear when it starts to take the shape of an entire ear, although inside out. And what I can do is I can show you the other ear. This is what you're looking at right here. The two views. This is the bear's left ear, this is the bear's right ear, and that's what it looks like inside out. Okay, we'll trim the eyes up just a wee bit, and then we'll make the lips so that salt can penetrate them. That's the little bit of excess skin there. That can be trimmed off just a wee bit. That's about as far as you have to go on the eye, right there. Salt will penetrate that. Now, splitting the lips is a term that sometimes baffles and confuses people, but it's not all that difficult to do. What you have is the lip skin, and it's about that thick right there. What you eventually want to do is to have your knife edge, the very cutting edge of your knife, fairly close to this surface right here. So in order to do that, you hold the hair side of the lip in one hand, like so, with your fingers, like that, and then you put your thumb on the other, and you guide the knife exactly in between the two, like so. And that's splitting the lips. This folds over, like that, and when the lip is split, what you're doing is you're allowing the salt to get right in there and cure that part of the lip. That's called splitting the lips. See, I'll push that back the way it was, and then I've taken my knife and I've worked it along the lip like this so that this can flip over, and the salt gets in that area there, and it totally preserves the lip skin, and it totally preserves the hair side as well. This has to be done around the entire perimeter of the lips, all the way around. All the way around. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, that it was very important to make sure that your cuts were exactly on the center line. And if you look at this side and compare it to this side, and look at the legs and everything is one side, if you draw a line down the middle, one side looks exactly like the other. That's important. Now what we're going to do is salt it. You have to use a fine salt. Coarse salt, it doesn't work as well. And when you salt the hide, you have to get the salt right to the edge all the way. And in any folds, you want to make sure that salt gets to all areas. It has to be packed really well in the toes and so on. So I'll just go ahead and put a layer of salt on there and I'll show how that's done. Just get a nice pile of it built up right there. And then work it down the leg. Salt is inexpensive. A large bag of salt like this is worth about $13. And it's probably the least expensive part of the whole process of looking after the hide, so you might as well use it liberally and preserve the hide. And you just push it in right to the edges, all along the perimeter. Any folds in the skin, there has to be salt placed in there as well. And what the salt does is it pulls moisture away from the leather part of the hide, and it also preserves it. And it helps set the hair. It pulls the little bit of liquid that's in the base of each hair root. It pulls that liquid out, and it helps set the hair. So a nice layer, fairly even. And I can come over to this side, do the front leg. Okay, and you get a layer of salt on the front leg, all the way to the edge. And then right in, you have to pack it right in the toes. And make sure there's a good, healthy layer of salt packed right into the toes. And then you can even build a little bit up right in there and make sure that the pad is covered, and a nice layer everywhere there. And the head, same idea. Backs of the ears, right to the edge, front of the ears. The lips have to be packed with salt, and right to the margins. The ears, the lips have been split, but you have to get salt right in there. The nose.
How long do you leave the salt for?
Okay, the salt. When I salt a bear like this, I just leave it for a few minutes, and then I roll it up, and then I place it on a board with an incline, because when the salt pulls moisture out of the hide, it's good to have that moisture drain away from the hide. So we'll give it a few minutes to just sit like this, and then we'll set it up on a board on an incline after rolling it up. That way all of the moisture can drain away from the hide, and it further helps drying it out. Okay, the salt is already starting to work, and if you just pull some of it away, you can see how it's starting to clump up. And right under here as well, it's pulling moisture away right there. The salt is already starting to clump up with moisture. And all over in here, it's pulling the moisture out of the leather part of the hide. So we'll just leave that for a few minutes, and then we'll roll it up and leave it on an incline overnight. The following day, I will open the hide up, scrape all the old salt off, and put a fresh layer of new salt on, and then just leave it air dry like that in room temperature. And I won't let it dry stiff as a board. I'll leave a little bit of moisture in it, enough so that I can be folded up and placed in a container to take to the tannery. There you have it. We have a properly skinned and preserved bear hide, and we have properly cared for and looked after meat. And it's part of the respect for wildlife and the rules that you only take what you need and you use what you take. Wise use of an animal, showing respect for the animal.
In the Yukon, many bears are taken each year by hunters. Renewable Resources encourages all hunters to maximize their use of the edible meat and show respect for all Yukon wildlife. For more information, contact the Yukon Government Department of Renewable Resources.